Hey, you guys, welcome to another video. I know I haven't been on here in a minute, man. I tell you, I've been really busy on this end, and but I'm glad you stopped by and to come check out what we're going to be talking about today. And so today we're going to be one of the things I was been working on as one of many things. As many of you are very aware, the world of AI has just exploded. I mean, it's just between the last time we've done post a video here and today, it's just all over the place. Everything from things you can do on your phone to obviously things on your computer. It just a ton of things. And this is actually works very well with people like you and me who love to research. It's made things so much easier. I'm still a book guy. So at the end of the day, I still like the books. I like going and digging through actual books and all of that. And but these tools actually make things so much easier to find out certain information and compare it, contrast it with all, different things so that, you can kind of know what you're talking about when you're out here in these streets, And so what I want to do is I want to play for you a video. It's a short video. It's 53 seconds long, and it's from the guy who is I believe he's the CEO of NVIDIA. And I want to show you this because he says something that is very important, very, very important. And let me go ahead and switch the camera here, and let's take a listen to what he is saying here in this video clip.
For example, if I were a student today, the first thing I would do is to learn AI. How do I learn to interact with ChatGPT? How do I learn to interact with Gemini Pro? And how do I learn to interact with Grok? And learning how to interact with AI is not unlike being someone who is really good at asking questions. You're incredibly good at asking questions, and prompting AI is very, very similar. You can't just randomly ask a bunch of questions, and so asking AI to be an assistant to you requires some expertise and artistry in how to prompt it. And so if I were a student today, irrespective of whether it's for math or for science or chemistry or biology, or it doesn't matter what field of science I'm going to go into or what profession I'm going to ask myself, how can I use AI to do my job better?
Very good point. Very good point. I was just like, wow, I've been saying this for a while. And that is when you're interacting with these platforms like ChatGPT or some of the other ones that he mentioned, the key is in getting the information that you're looking for is knowing how to ask questions. And the difference is, of course, is, between a ChatGPT versus, something like, just doing a Google search, is that you can get so much more refined information. You're not, having to hunt and peck through different websites and links and stuff like that to try to piece together, exactly what you're looking for. And now you're dealing with a system. It's almost, I would say, is a whole way of thinking, when you're making your inquiries regardless of what the topic is. And so knowing how to ask questions is so very key. And this is something, unfortunately, that's been lacking, when we're talking about here in the States and our school system. It's been lacking very much on knowing how to ask questions, to allow your brain to explore the space, if you will, so that you can come up with your own unique questions, as opposed to just repeating what someone else is telling you to say. I mean, schools today mainly teach students how to pass a test, and that's it. And you're not really given the space, to explore and to look at things at multiple angles so that you can get a little, you can get the answers that you're looking for from your own view. You know what I mean? Like, for example, you may have three people looking at an apple. They're all looking at an apple, but they're all looking at it from different angles. And some may be concerned about the film that's over the apple. Another one may be focused on the brown spot. Another one may be focused on the fact that it doesn't have a stem. And so those series of questions allows those individuals, based on their perspective, to find out more information about this singular thing that we're talking about, which is, in this case, we're talking about an apple. Well, it just blow that out even more. On this platform here, we've dedicated this platform to exploring the Bible. It's not to discredit the Bible. That's not the whole thing to set out. And our goal is to discredit it. But our goal is to take this book and to hold it against actual factual data information that's out there, research, archaeological finds, you name it, anything that people have done to verify the stories, the things that are mentioned in the Bible with actual facts that we do know, science, data, all of that stuff. And that is so very important. Now speaking as a black man, coming in my community, when I look at my community, unfortunately, we have been trained to basically, it's a whole God said it, I believe it, and that settles it. And when it comes to asking detailed questions, well, it's really not that. I don't think that's really the strength that many of us have, unfortunately. I'm not saying nobody has, but it's really not a strength. We just, we don't really know how to ask those deeper questions. And when you're questioning something like your religion or your belief system, well, that can be somewhat of a touchy subject for many people because, if you find out that what you've been doing or what you've been believing is wrong, that's going to change a lot. It's going to change a whole lot of things, that the way you've been doing things and stuff. And, you're going to have to break out of that if you're going to move forward in your understanding and knowledge of the things that are around you. So anyway, what we did was we created a tool here, and the way you can reach it, I'll put the link in the description. But let me go ahead and pull this up on the screen here for you. For those of you who don't know, we created this tool, and you can find it on our website. It's on journeymanandwoman.com, and it's called ClaimCheck, and it's loading up right there. You go. And so I'm not going to read all that, but basically this is an AI tool that I created on ChatGPT. And what you have to do basically to access it, number one, it's free. Number two, in order to access it, all you need to do is to sign up to get a free ChatGPT account. And then once you get your account, then you'll be able to access it with no problem. Like I said, again, I'm not charging anything. And to access it, you wouldn't have to pay anything. But basically what we did was we took a bunch of, when you're creating these tools, you want to train it. And the way we trained ours is that we reached and looked for different data sets of different researchers that are renowned for, their archaeological work, or maybe science, or, or doing deep research in the topic, anything that has to do with the Bible, and their whole purpose is to find out the historicity surrounding the Bible, So that's what we wanted to put in there. So the goal is, and the reason why we call it ClaimCheck is you have a lot of people who are out here making claims, adding their interpretations to what the Bible is saying or whatever. And they're running with these things as if they're absolutely true or they're truth. But, we need a way that we can take those claims, put it in something like a tool like this, and then compare it with actual factual knowledge that's already out there. And then we can see whether or not if it holds weight or not. You know what I mean? So we're tweaking it every day, tweaking it, meaning that as I find more like any other data out there that I can just put in there, I just add it in there as well. But here's the thing. Even when it reaches that limitation of the data sets that I may add, it will still go out to the general internet, and it will still go and look for the information, because it's trained to think like a team of PhDs. And so that's the information that we're pulling from, and we're telling it and instructing it, think like a PhD, a researcher, and you're an expert when it comes to Mesopotamian history, Phoenician history, history regarding the Levant, Egyptian history. What else did I say? African history, Middle Eastern history. I also said African American history. The reason why I said that is because I wanted to also be equipped to address people who identify as Hebrew Israelites, and you'll be able to, see how that all connects or doesn't connect or whatever. So, so that's that's how I was training it, so that when if it does have to go out to the general internet, it knows exactly, okay, this is the kind of information that we're looking for, on that. So it's a really powerful tool. And what we're going to do in this video today is we're going to actually go through an exercise on this. I did this earlier, but I'm going to do it again. I said, you know what, why not? Let me just go ahead and record it so people can kind of see. So again, you go to journeymanandwoman.com, and then, like I said, I'll put the link in the description below, and just click on the link, and then, follow the link, and then you'll be able to access it. Like I said, it's totally free, and that's it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and do our little research project here. Okay, so let me go ahead and pull this up here on the screen. Oh, there you go. And so I'll just make it big here. So when you get here, this is what it's going to look like. It says ClaimCheck, expert historian verifying biblical claims with historical and archaeological evidence. And then there's some starter questions here, but you don't necessarily have to click on them. But can you historically verify the Exodus narrative? What archaeological evidence exists? It says ... but I believe it says that King David existed. I think that's what it says. Compare Noah's flood to earlier flood narratives. Discuss historical evidence for and against the Garden of Eden. Those are just some of the types of questions you can ask. Now, if I just ask who wrote the Bible, or just something very simple, one-off, it's going to give me an answer, but that's a very broad answer, a question, right? We want to get a little more specific. So in this exercise, let's just start off I would just call it waves of thought. Okay. How about we just go with that? We're going to call it waves of thought. All right. So I am going to ask it to tell me, I want this to give me the full backstory of Yahweh. All right. So let's go with that. Let's see. Could you give me the story? All right. So that's a simple question. We're just starting off here. All right. And the reason why I'm going with this is, I know we have a certain amount of Hebrew Israelites that follow us, and oftentimes they will go with Yahweh. Well, Yahweh's mentioned in the Bible. Anytime you hear Lord and you look in the Hebrew translation in the Bible, it's Lord actually translates to Yahweh, or rather Yahweh. And so, so we're just going to start off with that. So could you give me a full backstory of Yahweh? All right. So let's just see. We'll start off very simple. Searching through its knowledge base, and it's going to go to the broader internet, and then it's going to put together for me, what its findings are. All right. And it packages it for us very nicely. Now you notice the difference. It's not like doing a Google search where, you got to sort through a bunch of links and stuff. But this actually packages it quite well. And you may be asking, okay, well, it's just giving you something, but what if I want references and stuff so I can look up on my own? Well, you're getting ahead of me, but yeah, that you can do that too. And we are going to do that here. All right. So we're just going to I don't know if I want to read through all of this for the sake of time. I try to, when I do videos like this, I know I got to keep it short. Okay, so we'll go through real quick here. So the history of Yahweh is complex, and scholars have traced its origins through comparative mythology, archaeology, and ancient inscriptions. The name Yahweh, the first, appears explicitly in biblical texts, but his worship likely emerged from a mix of regional Canaanite, Midianite, and possibly even Mesopotamian influences. And then it goes on, it says early origins and Canaanite context. And it says Yahweh was not originally the main deity of the region. The earliest Israelite religion seems to have worshiped El, all right, the chief god of the Canaanite pantheon. All right. So it wasn't Yahweh, it was El. All right. And in the Bible, you hear the word El mentioned a whole lot. Okay. And the earliest Israelite religion seems to have worshiped El, the chief god of the Canaanite pantheon. So we're finding out that the Israelites were actually worshiping a Canaanite deity. In Genesis, Israel's ancestors worshipped El under the titles of El Shaddai, the El, the Mountain One, El Elyon, El, the Most High, El Olam, El, the Eternal. This suggests that Yahweh may have initially been identified or absorbed in attributes of El. In contrast, the biblical book of Exodus presents Yahweh as revealing his name to the first time to Moses, so forth and so on, right? Yahweh's transformation into Israel's national God. All right. And it says the Israelite religion underwent a transformation where Yahweh replaced El as the main deity. This shift coincided with the development of Yahweh as a storm god and warrior deity, attributes more commonly associated with Baal or Baal. Another major Canaanite god. Yahweh's association with mountains, fire, and thunder, especially at Mount Sinai, reflects this transition. And then it goes on, it says, moreover, the Ugaritic text, 1400 to 1200 BCE, from the city of Ugarit in modern Syria, provides insight into Israel's religious landscape. These texts describe El as a wise, fatherly creator deity and Baal as a warrior storm god. The Bible shows a clear effort to distance Yahweh from Baal, yet Yahweh gradually took on many of Baal's attributes. All right. And then it talks about Yahweh and Asherah. And they talk about that relationship, that Yahweh had a consort or a wife by the name of Asherah. Isn't it interesting when we read in the Bible, Asherah was like, oh, you're worshiping the, Asherah and, how dare you or whatever. But, when you understand the historicity behind this and the people who wrote the Bible, you had people who were, polytheistic. They worship many gods. And then you had some that just worship only one God, and so when you're reading the Bible, you're going to see you're going to see the writings of some people who were, who worship many gods, and it's reflected in its writings. And then if you look at, other parts of the Bible, it's very strict, and you should only worship one God. And you see this conflict all throughout Scripture. And so anyway, here we go. Yahweh's connection to other deities. Some evidence points to the possible links between Yahweh and other ancient deities, the moon god Sin, Yahweh as a war god, Yahweh as a southern desert deity. And so what we're learning basically is that Yahweh was pretty much kind of like a hodgepodge of the different gods that were in that region in the Levant and the Mesopotamian era and all of that. And so that's what we're learning so far. So let's kind of think a little bit more here as we're looking at this. What else do we want to know regarding Yahweh so far? What stuck out to us? Let's see. Well, let's go on here. What we're going to do, let's look at Yahwehism. All right, let's do that. All right. So I'm a little curious about Yahwehism. Could you tell me more about Yahwehism, its origins, without using the Bible? All right. So that's kind of what I'm asking. Let's see. All right. And then, so I'm asking, could you tell me more about Yahwehism, Yahwism? That's how you say it, outside of the Bible. And then I'm going to say, and then could you also provide some references to ancient text that mention Yahwism? All right. So now we're, you get your first result, you read through it, and like I said again, it's waves, right? So you're reading through it, and it may be something that sticks out to you. You're like, I want to explore this part a little bit more. All right. So let's see what it says here. All right. So it's going to take a moment. It's doing his research. On average, I think my responses, the responses I usually get, the time it takes, it's probably like 30 seconds. So it moves very quickly. All right, so here we go. We'll start going through this real quick. Yahwism, the worship of Yahweh, was not limited to biblical Israel. Archaeological and epigraphic evidence indicates that Yahweh was worshipped in diverse ways across different regions. Some key insights into Yahwism from extra biblical sources include polytheistic worship. Yahweh was frequently worshipped alongside other deities such as Baal or Baal, Asherah, and even celestial bodies like the sun and moon. And they mentioned that in the previous results that we got. Inscriptions like the sun, the moon god Sin, Sin or Sinai, the wilderness of Sin. There's a connection with all of that. Let's see, Asherah and even celestial bodies like the sun and moon. Inscriptions from Kuntilit, let's see, Adrian, the 8th century BCE suggests that Yahweh was associated with Asherah, who may have been considered his consort. Worship in high places. This is where you get the most high, that's where that comes from. The Israelites, like their Canaanite neighbors, conducted religious rituals on high places, which is natural hilltops or constructed altars. And it goes on. Localized Yahweh. Some inscriptions indicate that Yahweh had regional manifestations, such as Yahweh of Samaria and Yahweh of Teman, suggesting that different Yahweh's cults existed in various regions. So, wow, we're finding out a whole lot more than just being restricted to the Bible, and just resting on that. We're finding out that you had other groups that were worshiping their own version of Yahweh all throughout that region. I'm finding this out along with you. I didn't know that, and so, it's quite interesting. Influence from other cultures. There is evidence that Yahweh worship was influenced by surrounding cultures. Some scholars suggest that Yahweh's origins could be linked to the Midianite or Edomite deities, as some inscriptions place Yahweh cult in the southern deserts. And then it goes on, ancient texts that mention Yahweh, and it gives us a list of ancient texts, that mention Yahweh. All right. And then, so it gives us a little bit more, and then it leads off here and says, would you like more details on a specific inscription or archaeological site? So I can go even further with that. All right. So let's go break off, and this is something that I asked this tool earlier was, what was it? It had something to do with Israel. Let me see if I can pull that up. Let's see. I think it was here. Am I on it now? Oh, yeah. Here it is. I think this is it. Yeah. Okay, this is it. All right, so same thing. So I'm gonna go down here. So in that result that it gave me, I asked it this. It told me this. It gave me. It mentioned this right here. It says the name Israel itself means El rules or El strives. I said, please provide additional references as well. I said, could you expand a little bit more on that? Because a lot of times, I know for many of you, you may have heard Israel means certain thing, is, Ra, and El, and all of that, right? Well, this adds a little bit more clarity to that, and it gives us some more information that we can kind of munch on here. Certainly, the name Israel, E with the Y, is traditionally understood to mean El rules, El strives, or the one that strives with God. And then the meaning depends on how one interprets the Hebrew root and the divine element of El. And then it goes down to breakdown of the name Israel. Yisra, derived from the Hebrew root, and then they give the SRH, meaning to struggle, to strive, or to rule. And then El, a common Semitic word for God, specifically referring to the Canaanite high god El, who was the chief deity or the older Canaanite pantheon of the older Canaanite pantheon. Interpretations of Israel. El rules or El reigns. This interpretation aligns with older Canaanite religious traditions where El was the supreme god. And then second point was Israel may originally have meant God is ruler or El has dominion, reflecting the earlier monolatris or henotheistic belief system of the Israelites before Yahweh fully replaced El as the primary deity. He who strives with God. The meaning comes from Genesis 32:28, where Jacob wrestles with the divine being and is given the name Yisrael because he is striven with God and humans and have prevailed. Now, and then I'll just read this other part here. The verb Sarah, I hope I'm saying that, in biblical Hebrew suggests struggle with or contention, leading to the common translation of one who wrestles with God. Now, so far, what the way when I asked this question, I did not I just asked a question. I didn't be more specific and say, okay, I want you to answer this question, but leave out the definitions of the Bible. In other words, or I would say leave out the framework of the Bible. In other words, all we're focused on is all the other research that's out there so we can kind of understand where this word Israel comes from, right? And so I didn't ask that. So that's why it's kind of blending that in. But as you go on, you're going to see me as I'm asking more questions. It's going to peel away and we're going to get more to the root of it. Archaeological. Okay, let's see. The earliest known mention of Israel in an Egyptian inscription is in an Egyptian inscription. It does not describe a kingdom, but rather a people group, indicating that Israel was a tribal identity before becoming a state. And then it mentions the Ugarit text, the Amarna letters. It mentions that as well. And then it says the name Israel reflects an early connection to El, showing that Israelite religion evolved from a broader Canaanite religious framework. Over time, Yahweh absorbed the identity and roles of El. Okay, like what we were talking about earlier. Okay, so here's where I'm trying to get a little bit more clarity. I said, outside of the biblical context, could you explain the origins behind to struggle? Because I was interested in that, because now what I'm doing is that in the biblical construct, when we think of the word Israel, we oftentimes go to that passage in Genesis where Jacob was wrestling with the angel who was actually God. And then that's where we get to struggle. That's where we get that from, right? But what we're starting to understand here is that the name Israel actually predated the Bible. So was it just about Jacob, or did it come from something else? That's what I was curious about. All right. So, and I was like, so where did this whole struggle thing, where did that come from? Well, because the framework in the Bible says, okay, Israel means that Jacob struggled with God and, and he won or something like that. Right. And, but that's in the Bible framework. But what we're interested in is any other. Why would this city be named after, have a name that means to struggle? Was there other definitions? Were there other reasons why that would be the case? That's what I wanted to find out. So anyway, so I asked my question. It says, certainly the concept of struggle in the name Israel derives from Hebrew, and same thing. However, the idea of struggle as a defining characteristic of a people or deity has parallels in other ancient cultures and languages, especially in the broader Semitic linguistic and mythological traditions. And then it goes on and explains linguistic origins of struggle in Semitic languages. The Hebrew root SRH is related to similar roots in other Northwest Semitic languages, including Akkadian, Ugaritic, and Phoenician. And in Akkadian, that Hebrew root word, it also can mean to struggle. Ugaritic, it has its own, dominion, contention, or perseverance. Arabic, same thing. Mythological and religious parallels. Many ancient cultures depicted their gods and heroes as struggling against cosmic forces, such as Jacob. Israel wrestles with a divine being in Genesis. Some notable examples include, and then they go on, Marduk defeats Tiamat. The hero Gilgamesh wrestles with Enkidu in the Epic of Gilgamesh, establishing the theme of struggle leading to transformation. And then it goes on, Ra struggles nightly with Apophis, Apep, the serpent of chaos. So this whole concept of one struggling with another, it wasn't just assigned to Israel itself, or the story of Jacob wrestling with, God, but it was similar stories that predated that account that, you can clearly see that, this is something that was clearly borrowed. And this whole concept of something struggling, one person struggling with another was a very, when you think in the mythos of these different groups or their religion, that was an aspect that was oftentimes highlighted and oftentimes in names. And so anyway, the next thing I asked, I said, are there any other examples of cities or towns in their region that incorporated struggle in their names? And so they mentioned some, Jezreel. I'm not going to, like I said, for this video, we're not going to go through all of this. I'm just taking you through an exercise on the importance of knowing how to ask questions. That's the whole point of this. Jericho, they kind of go through all of this here. So it gives you a bunch of examples here. All right. And so now I wanted to keep on prodding a little bit. I said, are there any examples where the Akkadian verb is specifically used to mean to struggle? So I asked that, and it kind of went through all of that, right? Because I was really interested in this whole concept of struggle. All right. So let's move on. So, and then I went to prod even more. I said, so taking into consideration everything you just provided so far, is it safe to conclude that the original meaning of Israel had little or to nothing to do with the biblical explanation that Jacob wrestled with God? And then the answer was yes. Based on linguistic evidence, historical context, and comparative mythology, it is very likely that the original meaning of Israel predates the biblical story of Jacob wrestling with God. The biblical explanation appears to be a later theological etymology rather than the original meaning of the name. Why the Jacob story is likely a later explanation. And then it goes through that. And it shows you there on the screen. All right. And then let's see. There's a little more here. So, so basically the conclusion is that this latest definition of what we know today as why the name Israel, what it means or whatever, that comes from the Bible, but that's just one of many that predated it. And it was actually a much, much, much deeper meaning behind all of that. They were just repeating what was going on in the region during that time. And so the story of Jacob, really, it's unique in that it's a character by the name of Jacob, wrestling with God. That's what makes it unique. However, this whole concept of struggling and all of that, well, we're finding out that, this was an ongoing theme that was going on in that region. So I just wanted to kind of show you, how to use these tools that are out here. This is certainly one that we created, but I'm sure there are many others out there as well. And I would encourage you to use these things and really understand the importance of asking questions and not just do a one-off and then that's it. Or who is God? Or are we the true people of the Bible? Or, stuff like that. You got to learn to think in stages, right? And because as with each response, it's going to break it down even more. It's going to take you down a much deeper path. And you can also ask it like, okay, like I can ask, Let's see. I'm trying to think of something else I can ask it, because I want you to see, some of the things that you can do. All right, let me do this one. All right. Could you what I'm going to ask it to do is for it to do a side-by-side comparison of 10 different cultural markers between the Israelites and the Canaanites. All right. You'll see in a moment. Okay, so let me go ahead and type that in. Let me see. Comparison. That looks at 10 different markers, different cultural markers. Let's see. Could you do a side-by-side comparison that looks at 10 different cultural markers between the Canaanites and the Israelites, and what we know about the Israel, and what we know about and what we know historically, not biblically, about the Israelites. You can post your, please produce show the results. Let's see, show the results in, on a chart. That, all right, in a chart. Let's see. I'm just thinking about this question a little bit. Could you do a side-by-side comparison that looks at 10 different cultural markers between the Canaanites and what we know historically, not biblically, about the Israelites? Please show the results in a column chart. I know I could have asked that much better, but let's just see what it does. All right. All right, so here it is. Let's go get ready to put together our chart. So I'm showing you. So as you're looking at this, you see how it's actually, the deeper your question is, the deeper your responses are going to be. If you just ask a simple flat question, it's going to give you a very broad brushed answer, right? But the more detailed your questions are, you're going to see the more details, the responses you're going to get, so here we go. So it produced something for us here. It says cultural marker, language, religion, writing system, political structure, economy, architecture, burial places, art and iconography, dietary practices, warfare and weapons. And it literally looks at all of this. So now I'm able to do a side-by-side comparison. And then I can do another one that says, show me the contrast between the two. You know what I mean? So it gives you a lot of information. And so AI is something, in conclusion, AI is I think for researchers, it's a great tool that you should be using. Gone are the days where you are sitting back and leaning on the interpretation of one person that's going to be just droning on for hours and hours and hours about their view of, or their interpretation of, a group of scriptures. And then they'll splash it on with, they'll find some bits and pieces and strips of historical events, and then try to paste them together to make it all kind of work together. But that's what they're doing. We're tired of that. We don't want that. What we want is the truth. We want the facts. And so this is what this tool does. Again, all you got to do is go to our website, which is journeymanandwoman.com, and then look for the link for ClaimCheck. And then, like I said, you do need to sign up. If you don't have a free account already, just get a free account with ChatGPT. and then you'll be able to use this tool. But I just wanted to take you through this exercise and emphasize how important it is. It's not just asking a question, it's how you ask a question, and you're going to get better at it the more you use it, because it just, when you ask intelligent questions, you're going to get intelligent responses. You know what I mean? And so that's why it's so important to really understand, like gentleman was saying earlier, the thing right now is knowing how to ask questions, because that's where the knowledge really is. You're really going to start gaining a lot of that knowledge when you know how to ask the right questions. So that's it. That's all I have for you. Thank you again for tuning into this video. You guys take care, and I'll see you again soon.